Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to Phil and Dave's Excellent Adventures. Just Dave here. Today we are talking about Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, Episode 4. This is going to be a spoiler review, so if you have not seen the movie yet or the show yet, and you are concerned about spoilers, I would suggest you go and watch the show first before you watch this review. So, Rings of Power, Episode 4 is the fourth episode of the first season of the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. As far as what I liked about the movie, overall the cast is great. Still Morfydd Clark as Galadriel, Robert Aramayo as Elrond, always good. I'm really liking Cynthia Addai Robinson as Queen Muriel, Maxim Baldry as Isildur, and Emma Horvath as Iarion. I think I said that right. And in this episode in particular, I was impressed with Joseph Mawle as Adar, Sophia Namvit as Princess Disa, and Owain Arthur as Prince Durin IV, and Peter Mullen as Durin III, his father, the king. I didn't even recognize Peter Mullen. When I looked it up, I'm like, wait a minute, that's the guy from Ozark with all the makeup and everything and the accent. Did not realize that was him at all. So yeah, I liked him a lot. I'm really liking Sophia Namvite as Princess Disa, Durin's wife. And Joseph Mawle as Adar, who was in Game of Thrones. Again, I didn't recognize him here, but I'm really liking the character of Adar, and I'm really liking his portrayal of it. I'm curious to know where it goes. I didn't mention it last time, but again, the music. Bear McCreary is one of the best out there as far as music goes, and I love the music on this show. I think it's great. I like the music on the show better than the opening theme they used, which is Howard Shore's theme. So I actually kind of wish they wouldn't have used that and just come up with a new score for it. But there you go. I like Galadriel's jail scene. Again, I'm trying to understand why people don't like Galadriel. And I think it's some people just don't like women who are strong and powerful. But I don't want to just dismiss people who legitimately may have a concern with either the actress or her portrayal, or even the way that Galadriel is being portrayed. Now, in the Silmarillion, they do mention that she was a warrior and that she did fight. So this, to me, seems totally within character. And again, I can see how maybe some people are a little upset that she's a little pretentious or a little too full of herself. But again, we have a great scene here where, she tells the queen, like, no, I will not. I am Galadriel, and then the immediate hard cut to her in a jail cell, which, little comedy bit. I liked it. I thought it was funny. And I like that scene there. I like that they finally showed us, which was in the box, which was Mithril, which I think everyone was assuming it was Mithril. So that makes sense. I also like that box. It looks like my mom had a jewelry box like that when I was a kid. So it always reminds me of that. I really like the scenes with Elrond and Durin, whenever they're talking about their friendship and everything else. Again, some people seem to think this is implying they have a, romantic relationship. And hey, if they do, cool, good for them. I don't care. I don't think that's what they're going for here. I think people just don't recognize what friendship looks like because we don't really do that kind of stuff anymore. But I don't know. I liked it. I liked when Queen Muriel finally at the end decided to join Galadriel, because it seemed like she wasn't. You've got Galadriel even on the boat, like giving her dirty looks as she's flying away. And then finally, she at the last minute says, okay, let's go, let's fight this evil and stop Sauron from rising again, which I really liked. That was good. I'm glad that happened. I like that there were no hyper stylized fight scenes in this one, like the last episode, despite the fact that it's the same director as the last one, but we didn't have that Matrix 300 style, whatever they were going for there. I'm starting to come around to Arondir. He's the character who I think I'm the least interested in, and I think it's mostly just because he doesn't talk much. He just kind of sits there. He occasionally says stuff, but when he does, it's not much, But I think I'm coming around to his character and his portrayal a bit more, and I'm liking the story and where it's going with him and Adar and the orcs and everything there. I like the Mark of Sauron and the way that the kids got it. What's his name? Theo. And the way that the other guy came up to him and said, oh, you've got the Mark too. And, they're kind of building that whole thing. I'm curious to see where that goes, although I don't love the character of Theo. Curious to see where that goes. I did like seeing the diversity in this show. I know a lot of people complain because they don't want to see people of color in a fantasy world or something. If they don't pass the Band-Aid test, they shouldn't be in there. That's ridiculous to me. It's ridiculous to say that in a fantasy world where with trolls and orcs and dwarfs and elves and everything else that people of color don't make sense. It's a fantasy world. You're ridiculous. But I also noticed in this episode, just in the background, Asian people and various different people of different races and ethnicities. And to me, I like that because it built the world and it made it seem bigger. It made it seem like there's more people in here, and it made it seem somewhat more like our world, which I sort of like because it makes it more relatable. And I think the thing about this show that I realized as I was watching it is it's just very comforting. It's like having a warm cup of tea. It's these conflicts are brought up and then resolved somewhat quickly. People love each other. They're very friendly, and they don't have any trouble really expressing their emotions for each other. So in that way, it's nice. It's comforting. I kind of like on a Friday night, coming home and just sitting down in a cozy little chair and watching this show. Makes me feel good. As far as what I didn't like about the movie, the CGI is not perfect on this show. There's a couple scenes, the tsunami scene early on, which it's not bad, but just a little bit like a video game where it looked a little bit fake. And I normally wouldn't even complain about that, but this is the most expensive show of all time, so I expect the CGI to be really good. I don't care for the character of Theo, and I hate that he hid in the well. I know he's a kid and he's dumb, and that's a dumb thing a kid would do, but like, come on, bro, like you're poisoning the water, man. You're contaminating that. That's for the whole village to drink out of. I mean, I guess the orcs have taken over, so you don't have to be concerned anymore, but also that's just a terrible place to hide. Why would you hide in a well? I mean, come on, man. You have nowhere to go. Yeah, you're just like trapping yourself there. That's stupid. It does feel like there's a lot of setup. In really all of these, the first 4 episodes have all been kind of a lot of setup, it seems. But yeah, in this one in particular, it seemed like there's a lot of setup going on. There's a lot. Now, maybe in the next episode, there'll be a lot more action to kind of justify all this setup. But this episode did feel like a lot of setup to me. We did not get anything more with the stranger. I think the stranger is probably the story I'm most interested in on this show, or at least one of them. And I'm curious to know who this guy is. Is he Gandalf? Is he Sauron? Is he somebody else? And we didn't get anything with the stranger at all in this one. So I'm hoping we get more of the stranger in the next episode. They're kind of doing this will they, won't they, maybe kind of flirty thing with Galadriel and Halbrand. I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. And I also, isn't she married at this point? So, I mean, they're not really like overtly flirting or anything, but it seems like they're trying to build up that will they, won't they, David Addison moonlighting kind of thing. And if so, I don't know if we need that necessarily, especially if she's already married and like I said earlier, I do like the fact that conflicts are brought up and easily resolved, but I can see why some people would take issue with that as well. You've got Elrond and Durin have a little bit of a tiff, a little spat, and then it's resolved pretty quickly, though. It's just like, nope, I'm your friend and I like you and I care about you, and that's it. And then Elrond and Disa have a little bit of a thing where she's like, oh, I'm sorry I lied to you. And he's just like, it's okay. You were trying to protect my friend and I love him, so I love you. Which again, that's nice. And that's not exactly what he says, but basically. And then Durin the Third gets mad at his son Durin the Fourth, and Durin the Fourth is like, hey, Dad, I'm sorry about that. And his dad's like, it's okay. I'll always love you, son. Come here. And I'm just like, and that's kind of what I expected him to say, and he did. And it's nice, but it's also like it deflates the conflict and the drama. But I also like the fact that the show is not relying on petty kind of soap opera drama to show the show, because there is more important threats out there. There is Sauron, there is Adar, there is Morgoth. There's a lot of stuff out there. So good, let's focus on that and not worry about these stupid little interpersonal things that don't really matter as much. So I actually really kind of like that. That being said, though, with the conflicts being resolved so easily, it does almost make it feel like a kid's show. It's like you're watching an episode of Arthur, and it's like, oh, DW scribbled in my math book and she apologizes and his parents take him out for ice cream and they're happy, which again, nothing wrong with that. I do realize it's kind of a family-friendly show, and I like that it's a family-friendly show, but there are times where it almost seems a little too kid-friendly, where I can maybe use a little more teeth to it. Other than that, this episode was again directed by Wayne Yip, who directed the last episode. He's done a bunch of TV, Utopia, Creature, Wheel of Time. I like this episode. I thought it was really, really well directed. So I'm curious to see more from him in the future. He's got 2 more episodes this season, I think. I'm still trying to figure out who Adar is. We know it's Sindarian for father. We know the orcs call him father. It seems that maybe he was the first orc. It seems like maybe he's the elf who made the orcs. He could be Morgoth or Melkor. Doesn't seem likely, though. It could be Sauron, possibly. And then other people online have said maybe he's someone named Maglin. I'm unfamiliar with this character, but he is apparently an elf who betrayed his people and gave up the location of the city of Gondolin to Morgoth. So maybe that's who he is. We do know that at some point he speaks Quenya or Quenya, which is an elvish language. And he does mention... he mentions something else, I believe the city of Gondolin, which is making people online think that he may be this Maglin character. Okay, I don't know who that is, so I'm curious to see what's going on there. It's also possible he could be Theo's dad. That's, I think, less likely, and I hope that's not the scenario. But we don't know who Theo's dad is. We do know that his name means father, and there does seem to be some sort of a reveal over who Theo's dad is coming up. I assume Theo's dad is actually Arondir, and they had that kid a long time ago. I'm actually wondering if, well, I don't want to say anymore, but I've got a theory. So yeah, who is he? Is he Theo's dad? Is he the first orc? Is he this Megwin guy? I don't know. I'm curious. And also, apparently, there are female orcs in this show. I don't remember seeing any specifically. There's a very good chance there were some that I didn't notice. But if there are female orcs, then that, of course, leads to all sorts of questions about reproduction and how orcs reproduce. We know the first orcs were elves who were corrupted, but it seems that at least if they're male and female orcs, they could then reproduce in a more traditional way, and that's how we would get more orcs. So as far as the world building goes there, I'm curious to see where it goes, and I'm curious to know what they come up with. So I like this episode, I think, more than the last episode, but not quite as much as the second episode. I think the second episode has been the stand-up for me so far, but this one I think is a close second to it. So my score on this one's going to be an 8 out of 10. I think it was a solid episode, and I'm really liking the show so far, and I want to know where it goes from here. So if you saw the episode, let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great night. I will see you here again next week.